Hey there friends, welcome back to another video. In this video we'll be looking at Workhorse. The ticker symbol for Workhorse is WKHS. And the reason we'll be looking at Workhorse is because there are signs in unusual option activity. For those of you who are new, we look at unusual option activity because it's typically a good indicator of where the smart money is going. And the smart money is made up of these large investors with buying power in the millions. There are investors that are buying large volumes of calls or large volumes of puts for a specific stock, and that's what we define as unusual option activity. The great thing about options is really two things. They give us an expiration, which is the date of where or when investors think that the price is going to move within, and the strike price, which is an estimate of where investors think the stock price is going to be. So as investors, we can take advantage of this information by either following the trade, taking a more conservative position, or finding a good entry or exit point for establishing any short-term or long-term positions in a specific company. So please remember to check out the disclaimer in the description below, as well as other information that I'll be covering in this video. So Workhorse was specifically identified while I was looking for unusual option activity, and it came to me through the form of a subscription that I have with the service at Market Rebellion. Every week they send out any trade ideas for that week around a specific stock and give a specific way of how to trade it depending on sort of the activity in the market. And this week they're recommending Workhorse for the week of February 26th. So we're going to take a look and see what's going on with Workhorse, and if we want to get in this trade, what should we be looking out for? So when we look at what could be driving the unusual option activity in Workhorse, we first want to see what the volume has been looking like thus far. And when we look at the list here of the most active options on barchart.com, we can see that the sentiment is roughly more optimistic for Workhorse, with there being approximately 73% of the total options traded being call options, and the other percent being put options. So it's fairly optimistic sentiment, or bullish sentiment, as we like to say. So that's a good sign that there potentially could be an upside. And if you guys have been tuning into some of the market activity, we saw sort of a sell-off today around some of these, I guess, highly traded names or maybe overbought names. And I think Workhorse has been a subject of that theme that has been going on, mainly because of just generating more returns and having this particular, or I guess being particularly involved in this energy and renewable space. So this is an interesting one to be on the lookout for. While I was looking at the news to see what could be driving some of the signs in this unusual option activity, nothing really stood out other than the fact that Workhorse was one of the stocks that slid today because it was basically kind of following the indexes, and most of the indexes were selling off on the day and then kind of, I guess, recovered later on. But nonetheless, nothing really stood out. The only other one that stood out was this article from Seeking Alpha, where they talk about how Workhorse could be in a bubble, and their, I guess, sort of points around why it could be in one is because of it just having a higher selling, pretty much being overbought, but then also just kind of being overbought on the expectation that they'll be able to acquire this U.S. Postal Service contract, which is, I guess, expected to end sometime around March. So that's something to be on the lookout for if you're going long-term on Workhorse, maybe looking at option contracts expiring in March and seeing if there are any contracts with high open interest in that period that you can try to leverage, because that'd be a good sign of where the smart money could be going. So that could be a catalyst for the stock as well on the downside if they're not able to acquire that contract, and this could bring the price of the stock down. So again, you could use it to your advantage in many ways, either getting put options, or if you want to establish a position in the stock, you can actually just purchase the stock if there is some downside after some of this catalyst news. So when we look at the option chain or the prices based on the recommendation from Market Rebellion, they're recommending the 30 call strike price for February 6th, or the 30 put, depending on the market conditions, either bearish or bullish. And when we look at the calls for the 30 strike, we see that there isn't really much volume and open interest, I believe. So here it is. Right here on this line, we see that open interest is roughly 369, but traded volume is 95, which is kind of low. And when we look at the put option, we see a little bit of a higher count in volume. So open interest, roughly 1.5K, and volume that is being traded, approximately 627. Now, I also do want to point out that in the Market Rebellion article, they talk about how pretty much the stock has been following, sort of been trading along with the indexes, and it's been making these moves to the upside. However, it's been kind of coming down lately, and it's closing near this 30 price, which could be a pivot point, right, for it. However, if we see some bearishness in the market, the stock price could continue to go down. So there's a potential for there to be a bounce from this pivot point of 30, or for there to be further downside from it. And to kind of gauge whether or not the stock can hit the prices that Market Rebellion is somewhat estimating it will hit, we want to take a look at some technical analysis. And just high level, you can see this turning point here that Market Rebellion points out of 30. You can see it served as a level of support or resistance in the past here, and roughly around here, and has also served as a level of support as well. So you can see these 2 points here. So there could be a bounce here potentially to the upside depending on market conditions, or a bounce or just a further decline to the downside if we continue to see more sell-off in the market, which gives us good opportunity either way. And therefore, they're recommending this trade either or. If I had to go away, I guess you would have to monitor the markets, but with some of this sell-off going on, I think maybe getting the puts might be a better strategy, or having higher probability of success, I guess. And you could see here that the trade idea would be getting the puts, and the target support levels here that you would want to consider selling off are as follows based on some of the analysis that they provided here. So these are levels that they've monitored historically and have just noted for us on the chart, which are helpful levels to see. So that's the trade idea for the day, or I guess for the week, identified by Market Rebellion. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.